Unknown, undiscovered, undefined. The living interaction in our world is composed of infinite possibilities that can reshape the world we've never expected. A new virus suddenly changed our lives.
Nakapasok na sa Pilipinas ang 2019 novel coronavirus.
Threatening the humanity, shutting down the economy.
I am placing the entire mainland of Luzon under quarantine.
And killing the lives of men. It has been classified as a pandemic that can rival wars that happened in the past. Before taking serious actions, announcing protocols and lockdowns, many world leaders underestimated the new virus that was spreading around the globe.
È assolutamente sotto controllo.
یکی از نقشه‌ها و توطئه‌های دشمنان ما هست کشور رو به تعطیلی بکشونن.
We should be going about our business as usual.
Nobody knew there'd be a pandemic or an epidemic of this proportion.
Aside from presenting facts about the new virus, this documentary will also unfold the truth on how it attacks the human respiratory system. How simple cough, shortness of breath, and fever can lead to more serious respiratory illness that can take your life.
First human case of the disease caused by novel coronavirus causing COVID-19, subsequently named SARS-CoV-2, was identified in Wuhan, China. Retrospective investigation by Chinese authorities have identified human cases with onset symptoms. Fever, dry cough, and tiredness are the major symptoms confirmed by World Health Organization. Many of the initial patients were all stall owners, market employees, and regular visitors of this market. Environmental samples was taken from this market and tested positive for SARS-CoV-2, further suggesting that this market was the source of this outbreak.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
Here we have Professor Balondo from Department of Health to give us some insights about this. Let's hear what she has to say. So, Professor, can you explain how this virus spreads or transmits to humans?
Since the first transmission is in Wuhan, China, this virus occurs even in direct, or close contact with the infected people. The excretion of saliva, respiratory secretion, or through respiratory droplets, which are expelled when an infected person coughs, sneezes, talks, or sings.
Here's another question, Professor. Who are more at risk to COVID-19?
For this question, anyone can be at risk in COVID-19 because it can be transmitted without any proof from the naked eye of human. But if the person is diagnosed with other diseases, especially respiratory diseases, it can be a vital reason for the COVID-19 to infect the human's body.
This will be the last question. How SARS-CoV-2 differs from other viruses and what are the effects to humans?
When we look under a microscope, we can see the crown-like structure of this virus. But this structure is among all coronavirus. This new virus is more contagious compared to other strands because, in fact, it can spill over an animal coronavirus, that it can adopt the ability of human-to-human transmission. And the human respiratory system is the most exposed for this virus.
As we go through, little facts and glimpses of hope envelop the world about this new virus. But What about the point of view of those people who's experiencing the center of this battle? Our soldiers, the nurses.
Hi, I am Gian, a medical nurse who assists COVID-19 patients. As a nurse, one of my responsibility is to monitor and to check all the patients that were assigned to me. Aside from that, I also prepare and deliver their respective meals and medicines. One of our strongest enemy aside from the virus itself is the mindset, the fear of testing positive in COVID, and of course the frustration of not being able to save everyone or the other patients. But the most satisfying thing for us frontliners and medical staffs is to see our patients slowly recovering, smiling again, and doing their best to fight this virus and to recover fast, because it gives us strength and motivation to do our best too.
The situation was especially hard for us since we are the most exposed to the virus. I would say that the struggle has doubled, if not tripled, from what nurses experienced before COVID. Ironically, our hospital's ICU was so crowded while still struggling to maintain social distancing. The work shifts became more exhausting and of course, dangerous. Going into this profession, I was aware of the safety hazard it brings, but this pandemic was still very shocking and hard for all of us. Not only were we physically exhausted, we were also mentally and emotionally drained.
A philosopher once said that experience is the best teacher of the future. But could this experience be a sign of numerous reasons to fight against COVID-19? If so, let's hear the voices of COVID-19 survivors.
I am Daniela Gaita.
I am Pauline Halili, COVID-19 survivor
and a presymptomatic patient.
Asymptomatic patient.
It started in early March 2020. It was before the lockdown and social distancing happened. And I came to attend to a birthday party, and I didn't know that this fairy tale-like party will turn into a nightmare. Because after a few days, my friend called me and says that 3 of their guests were positive with the coronavirus, and immediately decided to get me tested for COVID-19, and I was hoping for a negative result, but then sadly I am positive and I got infected, and I quarantined myself in my room for almost 14 days. In the first days, I got no symptoms. It's perfectly fine, but my nightmare came after 2 to 5 days, I think. That's when my symptoms started showing one by one. First, I have a cough. The second is that my fever fluctuating, and I'm having shortness of breath. That's when I think that maybe I will die in the process. Maybe I will die with this coronavirus. But God is good. He gave me another life and saved me from this coronavirus. After so many treatments, prayers, I got better day by day. And I am proud to say that I am now a survivor of this COVID-19.
It started early in April, where I was diagnosed as COVID-19 positive just after I visited my grandparents' home in Manila. When I back home, I think it's 1 to 2 days before I got the symptoms. I have fever and mild cough. So each day passed, the symptoms become more serious, where my fever was rising and falling irregularly. My cough become more serious, where I cannot breathe properly, and I started to lose my sense of smell and taste. I decided to go to one of the hospital here in Nueva Ecija to consult. And when I got the result, it's so sad that I was positive. Will I die? What if my family got the virus too? Will I survive? I packed all my things and I immediately go to the hospital, and I was so isolated where no one can visit you, not even your family member. The doctors and nurses are really accommodating, and they do all their best to make us feel better, and they always check for our vitals, for our fever and everything, and they always make sure that we take all our medicines in time. So I was discharged after spending 15 days in hospital being isolated. I just want people to know that getting COVID-19 is a serious matter, but it is not a death sentence. We can win over it. All we need to do and have is faith, and we just need to trust the process, the doctors, the nurses.
Limitless possibilities will revolve from different unknowns. As time continues to elapse, our soldiers are ready to launch the biggest bomb of health history. Dr. Aaron Kimbalon will speak for truths and experience of what war he's experiencing against COVID-19.
When we accepted COVID-19 patients for the first time, all of us in the hospital were afraid since that was our first time encountering patients with that condition. We too are unsure for our safety and health since we don't know what will happen next. It's a whole new type of disease that we come across, and who would have thought that this situation will be this serious? It was very overwhelming to experience this kind of situation, especially to those patients that became critical, and we intubated them too sometimes. For the family of those patients who died because of COVID, it's hard for me to say to them directly despite the things that we did for them to survive. It's a mentally draining experience, but that experience made us stronger. In my 10 months of experience as a doctor in this hospital, the most rewarding experience that I experienced is when they recover from the disease, and that's what we hope more in the future. And as we all know, COVID-19 or coronavirus disease 2019 is a disease caused by a virus that directly attacks the respiratory system, and the transmission spread from person to person. The virus that causes COVID-19 is SARS-CoV-2, which stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2. SARS-CoV-2 belongs to the family of Coronaviridae that commonly affects mammals, birds, and even reptiles, and is a type of zoonotic virus. Previous outbreaks that were reported include MERS in 2012, which stands for Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, and SARS in 2003, which stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, that also affects the global health situation. The scientists are believing that these are similar to the previous types of coronaviruses, such as the MERS and SARS. The SARS-CoV-2 enters the body through the eyes, mouth, and nose to the mucous membranes in the throat. When it reaches the healthy cells within the respiratory system, the virus latches a spiky surface to the receptors of the healthy cells and penetrates into the cells. It utilizes all the nutrients in the cells and kills them as it spreads down to the trachea and eventually to the air sacs. As it spreads down, it leaves the inner lining of the respiratory tract irritated and blocked due to the accumulation of fluids in the alveoli, thus hindering breathing. That causes pneumonia, clogs of fluid, and patchy areas in the chest. The immune system of the patient then responds through fever, dry cough, fatigue, chills, sore throat, running nose, loss of appetite, and smell as key symptoms. In the end, the patient might develop respiratory failure. In critical cases, the patient may have severe pneumonia or acute respiratory distress syndrome or ARDS. And if the inflammation becomes severe, the protein-rich fluid can enter the bloodstream and travel elsewhere in the body that causes SIRS or systemic inflammatory response syndrome. It may lead to septic shock and multi-organ failure, which can have fatal consequences.
If anything, we know what it takes since a virus hasn't beaten us yet. Despite the fact that we are in this race since life on Earth began. Now, being able to cope in our own little ways amidst the new normal is very admirable, overthrowing the idea of being sad, isolated, and alone is the spirit that we need as we face the forces of this crisis. What we need right now is to spread the message of hope and positivity during these trying times and radiate a positive energy towards other people who are in the same situation like us. With an informed mind and a fearless heart, let us conquer this obstacle towards the future of our new world. This has been Seven Studios till we soar for higher knowledge against significant changes.